The Uganda Police Force today, 46,000 strong, well trained, equipped to execute its mandate of keeping law and order in the challenging environment of contemporary Uganda. This is the Uganda Police in 1906, when it all began. A 967-strong colonial force made up of white officers and native constables, commanded by white men, with only one native officer, referred to as Effendi. These were drawn from Uganda Protectorate Armed Constabulary. Formed in 1989, it was charged with quelling wars and disturbances. The first Inspector General, Captain later named Brigadier W.F. Edwards, DSO, came to Uganda on the 26th May 1906 and set up the structure of the Uganda Police Force. The police force was headquartered at Entebbe, with the first police station close to the governor's administrative offices. By 1907, the police was made up of 12 companies and units across the country. Besides Entebbe, police stations were also established in Mbarara, Fort Portal, Hoima, and Wadelai. Each police station was manned by an inspector, 14 officers, and 95 constables. Following the First World War in 1914, a total of 776 police officers were drawn from the force and dispatched to the southern frontiers for 3 years. This state of affairs weakened the police force, causing a surge in crimes in many towns where population was growing rapidly. In 1923, arms, which had been the subject of complaints for many years, were replaced by modern weapons and ammunitions. The enormous increase of traffic in townships called for great activity in its control, and in 1927, selected native constables were trained for traffic duty and posted at fixed points in Kampala. Because of the substantial growth in the Ugandan economy then fueled by cotton production, the colonial government decided to have the Uganda Fire Services established in 1926. This was basically intended to protect ginneries and cotton stores. By 1928, the mobility of the force had been stressed so often that during that year, a flying squad of non-commissioned officers and men mounted on motorcycles was formed. Their frequent visits to the outlying districts and villages were very effective, especially in connection with inquiries regarding tax evasion, bicycle licenses, and poll tax. In 1932, for the first time, boots were permitted to be worn by drivers and certain non-commissioned officers. In 1933, for the first time, the force purchased mechanized transport. 2 station wagons were taken into use and 2 fire engines were purchased and stationed at Kampala and Jinja. A mobile traffic section was formed in 1937. 1 officer was posted at the police headquarters. 3 inspectors and 3 inspectors of vehicles were distributed to Kampala and Jinja. In 1947, the Uganda Police Band was formed. Its major role was to play the British national anthem and also play songs, as well as leading parades during ceremonies at national days. The civil disturbances, which started in 1945 and ended in 1949 with the Bataka uprising, threw heavy responsibility and tough work on the police force. In response, wireless communication was introduced in the force, and 24 African police officers were trained in Nanyuki, Kenya, to operate the equipment. The 1950s saw a vast building scheme for police structures. Katwe Police Station, Jinja Road Police Station, and Kawempu Police Station were completed in 1951. In the same year, work on the construction of Naguru Police College and Barracks commenced. Later in 1953, Kira Road Police Station was opened. Throughout the 1950s, police was faced with the challenges of containing activities of Ugandan nationalists who were agitating for self-rule. Ignatius Musazi, John Kale, George Jole Chiwanuka, to mention but a few, bore the brunt of a colonial police force that was bent on thwarting them to appease their masters. In 1953, Chibuli Police Training School was opened. Its function was to help produce a far better quality policeman. In the same year, courses for the new cadre of Lana Sub-Inspector began at the training school. 86-year-old SMK Lubega, who had completed his junior secondary school, was one of the first recruits that met the required qualification and was admitted at Chibuli Training School.
I was measuring 5'7", whereas they wanted 5'8". But that did not make a big difference. And the chest measurements were okay.
The recruitment into the force was skewed toward specific tribes and regions. Retired Inspector General of Police Okotho Gola was one of the early cadet officers. He observed this trend in the recruitment.
They thought that the Acholis and the Itesos were obedient and they were willing to work as security officers. The Baganda were not willing to work as security officers, they were willing to work as clerks. The people from West, they said they were weak. The Acholis, in fact, as when I joined, they were 1,007, and the Itesos, they were 1,006.
Construction of Nsambya Police Barracks was completed in 1953. It remains the largest police barracks in the Eastern Central Africa region. By 1954, the ratio of police to the population of Uganda stood at 1 to 1,806, and the first African Assistant Superintendent of Police was appointed. It is within the same period that police officers started getting involved in prosecuting cases in courts.
Police were allowed to prosecute in magistrates' courts. I was one of them.
In 1954, Queen Elizabeth II visited Uganda. It was a major occasion when for the first time the Uganda police was tested in the crowd control to handle people who had lined up all the way from Entebbe to Jinja, where she opened the Owen Falls Dam. However, the Queen's security was handled by the British police officers who were part of her entourage. The return of Kabaka Mutesa from exile in the UK in 1955. This time, the Uganda police force had to control the massive crowds that turned up to welcome him, later on providing security all on their own. In 1959, the police air wing was started with its base in Naguru in Kampala. It was initially set up as a support unit to help the police to enforce law and order in difficult place-to-reach areas such as Karamoja. In 1961, the first female constables were recruited into the police force. They were 10 in number. Until this time, the force was a solely male establishment. October 9th, 1962. Uganda attains independence.
Uganda is independent.
It was a moment of national joy and jubilation. The police put up colorful parades and played music that kept guests entertained. Although Uganda was officially declared independent, a number of key government institutions and departments continued being headed by Europeans.
But
now in retirement in Bweyale, Kenneth Ojolo was 2 years in service as a police officer.
Police at that time, at independence, you would say it was actually a British police, because they are the ones that brought police, established the police.
Michael J. Makoon, who had been appointed IGP in 1959, remained in that position until 1964, when Erinao Riema replaced him as the first African Inspector General of Uganda Police. The ethnic component was very key in determining who became the first IGP.
The Prime Minister had a problem, but because the Acholis were the majority, they had to get the Inspector General from the Acholis and the deputy from the Tesos.
The police force that Oriema took charge of was structured into 4 divisions.
The main division was the general duties, then the CID and the special branch.
After independence, the police took up another important role, that of offering protection to VIPs, particularly the president. Kenneth Ojoro, who had joined police in 1961, was a member of the Presidential Guards.
We catered for the protection of the VIP, in particular the Obote, and also arranges places where he would go to, acted as advance parties going ahead before he arrived to a place.
In 1963, Uganda Police Force allowed the first females to be recruited as cadets. Retired Superintendent of Police Jane Nakabi was the first female cadet assistant superintendent of police.
In 1961, before I joined, a European police officer, woman, came to Uganda and started the section of women police with 10 women constables. Having obtained the independence in Uganda, they said now that we are independent, we have to train the African woman to take over the women's section. And that was myself.
Women wings had to be opened in all police stations for their impact to be felt across Uganda.
I opened up offices in Jinja, Bali, Gulu, Lira, like that. Poto, Mbarara, Masaka. So they became more.
A key function and role that the post-colonial police force took up was the gathering of intelligence to safeguard Uganda's internal security and sovereignty. This role was carried out by the Special Branch.
Special Branch was an intelligence department of police, which not usually deal with investigate political crimes, not usually criminal cases. They would also report criminal cases where they come across. But their core objective was to collect intelligence, what we would call state intelligence.
The closed escort unit was put to the test on the 19th December 1969. While leaving the UPC delegates conference venue at Lugogo Indoor Stadium, Prime Minister Obote cheated death when an assassin's bullet tore through his jaw, injuring him on the lip, tongue and teeth.
Gunman took advantage of darkness about 7:30, 8 o'clock there, and fired at Obote. It was so dark, I think his bodyguard could not know properly, but one of the bodyguards fell on the assassin, and later on he escaped. He also claimed he shot him.
The assassination attempt on Obote's life was linked to Idi Amin, and actually triggered off a series of events that culminated into the murder of his deputy, Brigadier Okoya. It also further deepened the rift between the police and Idi Amin.
The investigation pointed to Amin as the main suspect, and that might have been the cause of the coup of 1971.
January the 25th, 1971. Jubilations as Ugandans celebrated the fall of Milton Obote. But unknown to them, the celebrations masked deep-seated tension that saw further assault on the integrity of police and its eventual collapse. When Amin announced his cabinet, the biggest surprise for Ugandans was the appointment of Erinao Riema as Minister of Lands, Minerals and Water Resources.
Amin did not like to hear that there was another general other than himself. So he demoted Oriema from the rank of Inspector General to Lieutenant Colonel and appointed him as the Minister of Lands and Minerals and Water Resources. The rank of Inspector General downgraded to that of Commissioner. So Amin was in peace with himself.
From henceforth, the military government rendered the police dysfunctional. This man, by the name of Ali Toweri, literally took over control of Uganda Police.
Toweri came from Kenya. He was in Kenya, but after independence, the three states agreed to swap police officers. Those who were in Kenya, Ugandans who were in Kenya, to come. Kenyans who were here, to go to Kenya. He had been transferred here.
He used to be in barracks supervising slashers. He was a corporal and he was promoted straight to senior superintendent of police.
He had all the powers, even more power than the Inspector General.
He could not write, he could not even write his own name, but he was responsible to the police force.
Ironically, named Public Safety Unit, this small house located at Naguru Police College, now housing UNAFRI, was Ali Toweri's command post and torture chamber. Thousands lost their lives, while those who survived its walls lived to tell horrifying tales.
They had nicknamed Pirate.
With men like Ali Toweri in charge, the real apex of the police collapse came when Amin's government tried to coerce the force into accomplices to justify the murder of Archbishop Janan Luwumu. Two cabinet ministers, Erinai Oriema, Uganda's first IGP, and Oboso Fumbi, were tortured and murdered.
We, the senior officers, were called at Nile Mansion and made to stand in a semicircle. 18 bishops of Anglican Church were brought. They were put in front of us and we were told to condemn them.
Some police officers were ordered to take part in stage managing an accident at the gate of the infamous State Research Bureau in Nakasero to justify the murder.
Somebody enticed me. He wanted to persuade me to take part in the fake accident because they knew I was very good at making accident sketch plans. Said my friend, I can't do that.
Wafula, a friend of mine who was in charge of traffic, was told to go and try to plan the fake accident. And Wafula said, I'm a Christian, I cannot do that. And that was his death sentence.
The murder of the Archbishop accelerated the downfall of Amin, and in 1979, with the military support from Tanzania, a force of combined Ugandan fighting groups routed Amin out of power. The police forces, who were already discredited, was forced to flee as the Tanzanian forces hunted for anyone associated with Amin's regime.
I went to Kasangati just 2 days away before the falling. When I was coming back, I found the liberators. I introduced myself. Oh, they said, it's you people we are looking for. They arrested me.
In the absence of a credible police force, the post-Amin governments found themselves in the difficult task of maintaining law and order. There were only 3,500 men and women to police the entire country. Besides the skeletal police force, the situation was not helped by the political leadership at the time.
Within 2 weeks, Binaisa brought in his colleague Musoke, who had retired in 1969 as the Inspector General.
Subsequently, Okothogola was named IGP under Obote II regime, and he began the daunting task of rebuilding the police. For the first time in Ugandan police history, one had to have a university degree to be recruited as a police cadet. The first batch were sent for training in Tanzania.
In
Retired Inspector General of Police John Kisembo was one of the first graduate cadets.
Why Tanzania is because Uganda was just emerging out of a war. The infrastructure had been run down. The police force had been decimated through desertions, through people just ran away, others were killed. So the strength of the police force was very low, and the capacity to train was not quite adequate.
Elizabeth Mwanga was the first ever Ugandan woman graduate to join Uganda Police as a cadet.
I was the only woman there. And I did not think about I'm a graduate or what. I just felt I should be part of this change which was coming.
But it was not easy for these cadets.
Acceptance, first of all, of the graduates was a problem amongst senior police officers who were then even serving, because they thought we were too young to hold such responsibility or posts. So there was that bit of resentment.
The 1980s were a challenging time for this rebuilding effort because of the people's protracted war in Ruwero.
Everybody wanted to do police work. The NASA wanted to do police work. Everybody, the chairman wanted to do police work. You've heard of many chairmen who ended up in prison trying to do police work. So it was very, very difficult.
The Uganda Police Force's Special Force Unit, which was tasked to deal with the war, instead deteriorated into an indisciplined, brutal outfit that was hated and feared by the population. The unit teamed up with other military agencies. Unlawful detentions, codenamed Pandagali, was its byword.
Pandagali was for purposes of computers. So alleged people who had come from the bush to identify their colleagues who were in town. And of course that one had its own flaws. Very many innocent people were picked.
1986. The NRA marches into Kampala and takes power. It is another dawn to rebuild and replenish a battered, discredited, and undermined police force. A new IGP, none other than Luke Ofunji, who had fallen out with the Obote II regime, takes charge of the police for a short time. David Somogen took up the mantle from 1989 to November 1990.
Each time a regime takes over, it has impact, and the police as an institution. Some officers are dismissed, just things like that. And then you begin rebuilding again.
Kosi Odome, who became IGP between 1992 to 1999, was a young police officer at the time.
When I joined the Uganda Police Force, our strength was barely 14,000 people. So there was again a massive recruitment of graduates, also police constables.
But this rebuilding process was also not without its challenges. As the police tried to redeem its image and reconstitute itself, allegations of corruption, abuse of office were still a major concern. In 1999, a commission of inquiry into the police conduct, headed by a High Court judge, Julia Sebutinde, was instituted.
And it was, I think, basically meant for me, but it was expanded generally to sort of clean the Uganda Police Force. As a result, a number of police officers fell by the roadside.
It was right that the authorities put up that commission of inquiry. My problem with it, however, is that the commission did not do any inquiry. It rode on allegations which became recommendations to the authorities. And that's why subsequent inquiries, like by the IGG and other bodies, found most of these allegations untrue, and very many of us were cleared.
In spite of the criticisms, the Commission recommended wide-ranging measures to address the issues. In 2002, a two-star military general was appointed to head the police force and more so, to implement the recommendations of Sebutinde Commission.
Some of the recommendations were actually required somebody to come down and enforce them, implement them, without batting an eye. Commission. One of the briefings I got was read the Sebutinde Commission and implement what Sebutinde has recommended in those areas. And many things bordered on either interdicting people, or dismissing people, putting out people out of office. And so it was not very rosy.
The appointment of a military officer raised eyebrows and some fears that the move was aimed at militarizing the police.
When you look at the two institutions, the police and the army, and you read, for example, the provisions in the Constitution, you'll find the functions are not so much different. They are somehow, if you do the interpretation and read between the lines, it more or less goes into the same direction.
At the end of his 4-year term, Katumba's efforts had substantially paid off.
One of the things which I really put in a lot of effort was to bring back the image of the police. Reach out to people, talk to explain what the police is doing.
On tackling the issue of corruption, the General admits it remains a critical, daunting task.
I can't say I totally dealt with corruption, but I tried. We tried to fight it. Actually, that's because by the time I came in, the commander-in-chief had actually sent the traffic officers off the roads because of corruption. But gradually, we brought them back after injecting some new blood in the traffic department.
In 2005, another 2-star general was appointed to head the force, General Kale Kaihura. An indication that the move to bring someone from outside seemed to have worked.
Police was, after General Katumba came in, had picked up a little bit, but still you had, especially the military elements, especially CMI and JAT, very, very active.
Admittedly, besides continuing the work of rebuilding the force, General Kale's entry was met with a new wave of challenges. The political demonstrations, the LRA war in northern Uganda, the growing threats of terrorism, and the new high-tech cybercrime. In 2009, the Kayunga riots put to the test General Kale's ability to marshal the police to effectively control such situations and further expose the shortcomings of the police force.
Which found the police lacking and had actually to bring in the military. It was a consensus that the capacity to fight riots was necessary and were given the resources.
But to rectify these shortcomings and build capacity of the police force required substantial resources, which the leadership succeeded in lobbying for.
I remember interacting with the Keith Mwakanis, who is now the PSST, about our non-tax revenue. And he said he was so happy with the performance of traffic police. So he allowed us to retain our non-tax revenue. In fact, the equipment that we acquired, especially anti-riot equipment, fire equipment, ambulances, the money we used was basically what we were generating as non-tax revenue, which we were allowed to retain.
This approach did not stop at lobbying for resources. It was extended to motivating the men and women in the force.
Constables, you are constable, especially the lower ranks, were never promoted. 30 years, 40 years, on the same rank, in the same station. How can you be motivated? So I went public service and asked them, but what's this? They said, no, by policy, public service, there must be mobility all the time. So I said, this is sweet music. And I remember we promoted 10,000. One time we promoted 10,000.
This set the stage for a roller coaster structural transformation of the entire force. Today, the Uganda Police Force is made up of 14 directorates, with the IGP as the overall head. A big number of these directorates are housed in the force's brand new home at Naguru.
For the first time, the police has got its own headquarters. We are no longer nomadic. Although this is just an annex, the main one is coming.
The ICT Directorate, the nerve center of Uganda Police Force. This confirms the fact that no modern police can operate effectively without it.
Whether you are doing CID, you are doing counterterrorism work, you are in oil and gas, you are in Interpol, you are in traffic, everything needs ICT. So you have to realize that we are embedded behind every directorate, terrorism. And it's now technology that you realize that in Uganda, even though I'm not saying we are 100% free, but we are still surviving based on technology. We have CCTV cameras running on the national fiber backbone. It's the best now streaming of video you can find in Africa here. We are able to see the airport, we are able to see the VIP route from the airport to the city, we are able to cover most of the critical installations in the town. Now I want to extend to also low value critical areas like Owino markets and Chiseka and all those places. Then after that, we expand to different towns because now we are like the fiber has been rolled out. So it's going to be easy for me just to put a station, hook to the fiber, and the signal is relayed here. The young police officers, we are giving them initial induction at the training academy to make sure they are computer literate. But the old ones I'm arranging actually, every time Makerere gets a holiday, I get about a month of training. I send 100 officers there. They train them on simple, basic computer applications.
Adjacent to the main building is the Police Forensic Directorate, where a state-of-the-art forensics and biometrics laboratory is housed. Commissioned in 2011, the facility has modern investigation equipment capable of handling any sophisticated evidence, including DNA tests. Its capacity has earned it an important role in the sub-region.
The East African member states also selected this center, this facility, as a referral center to be developed into East African Community Forensic Laboratory as a referral center for the whole region.
Located to the northwestern part of Masindi town, Police Training School Kabalie was established in 2005.
Kabalie was to have our own police training school. You know, there were two colleges. One was Naguru Police College, another one was Police Training School Chibuli. The police college was given to UN. The police training school Chibuli was, because of urbanization, is really enclosed within the city and there is no even a training facility. So, because of the training demands, police was given space in the Army Artillery Institution in Masindi from 86 up to 2005 when we left. We were just squatters in the Army barracks. And when the current Deno Katumba came, land was given to the police by Masindi district leadership, 2 square miles. And then when the current IGP came, we said, sir, but even the liberation of this country was done in the bush, let us go and start a training school.
Today, the school has capacity to train over 6,000 recruits. It has 48 classrooms where over 20 courses are conducted and dormitories with capacity to accommodate 700 cadets. Currently, the school is building accommodation for its teachers and instructors. Since its establishment, over 15,000 trainees have passed through its gates and have become part of the new generation of Uganda police officers. Additionally, 120 cadets from South Sudan and Somalia have trained here, attesting to international credentials of this institution. In order to keep abreast with challenges of fighting terrorism threats, Uganda Police established a directorate with specialized units for that purpose. Currently housed at Naguru Police Barracks, the directorate boasts of highly trained personnel equipped with the necessary gadgetry to deal with any terrorism threats. Assistant Inspector General of Police John Ndungute is the Director Counter-Terrorism Directorate.
Ours is like a division strength. You do not less than 4,000, not more than 4,000 personnel.
The counter-terrorism has 7 specialized units: tourism police, tactical unit, technical department, intelligence, aviation police, government security office, and community policing.
Terrorism in this country is our number one priority, to make sure that the Ugandans and everybody in this country does not really fall into their hands. The threat is still there. We have got the capacity to react to any counterterrorism challenge, whether in this country or even outside. As I have told you, our people are in Somalia.
Since its establishment, the Directorate has made remarkable achievements in fulfilling its objectives.
We have achieved in disrupting the attack on Kampala. Number two, you remember in 2010, when we had the terror attack on Lugogo and Kawaragara, counterterrorism played a very big part in giving the leads to following these people.
Tackling domestic crime and public disorder. This command to handle these aspects of policing was consolidated into the Field Force Unit. Started in 1987 as the Mobile Police Patrol, its scope of work has evolved and continues to evolve, the reason for its structuring. Composed of specially trained 10,646 men and women with support equipment, the unit is tasked to stem riots and public disturbances. It has its presence in all districts and municipalities across the country.
It has been here for a long time.
John Wajira is the acting director of the outfit.
A unit was created first and foremost to handle patrols. The reason why it is called Mobile Patrol Police Unit then. So that was the major mandate. Handling armed criminals in Kampala, patrolling and restoring sanity within the city. That was 1987. Early 1990s, public disorders started coming up, overtaking armed criminality. Some riots, some agitations here and there. Then another mandate of handling public order management, what by then we called anti-riot, evolved. Then over time, other mandates and other have continued coming up, from public order management to international peacekeeping, formed police units, to now presently taking over and stock safety unit.
Their distinctive camouflage uniforms denote the different roles they play.
The uniform presently is this one, but for the Special Field Force Regiment, who are also under here, they have a similar uniform but with a brown tint, a brown madoado. The Special Field Force Regiment is under Field Force, but they have much more training. They are specialized. They work as a first line of counter-terrorism. Actually, a person who works here first undergoes normal training, then he comes here for additional one in public order management, that is anti-riot, then advanced techniques in the military, then specialized training.
Today, the unit boasts of one key achievement, which is pivotal to its effectiveness.
Professionalization and equipping. Because by the time I joined this unit, we only could arm and afford to deploy about one company. One company is about 140 policemen, fully equipped with G. And these are the people we are using to handle Kampala. We had only 2 riot control vehicles. We were doing very many assignments because we are still the same unit handling VIP protection. But as I talk now, we are able to handle the whole country because the whole country have equipment, and we have been able also to have more non-lethal capacity and much more international training, which, as you can see, I think from 2004, as far as I remember, we have not had any death or any injury related to public order directly.
Besides, the unit's role in as the first to deploy as peacekeepers in Somalia is recognized.
This is very unit was the first one to deploy a contingent of 140 police officers in Somalia.
Kampala Central Police Station, the command center for policing Uganda's capital city, Kampala. Policing a community of close to 2 million people of diverse backgrounds, beliefs, and political inclination is very challenging. For 3 years, Assistant Inspector General Felix Kawesa was in charge of instilling order here.
My mission was to ensure that there is total law and order. But that was not easy. I was briefed by my boss, the Inspector General of Police, and he said, you need to focus much on engagement, mobilization, and have a public support. So that's how I started, and I can say along the way, this has yielded dividends.
Kawesi weathered the storm and managed to restore sanity and order in the city.
Every incident that happened, I was in charge. I would personally be at the scene, ensure that the operations are well directed. Number two, I built confidence in the officers.
This success earned him promotion as the new police operations commander.
My mission really is now national, and I don't doubt my ability to handle. Although it can't be, it's not me as Kawesi, it's the system I put in place, the teams I identify, and I can assure you, come to the next 1 decade from now, I think we shall be far better.
Reporting directly to the IGP, the Flying Squad is a crack unit that tackles very violent crime.
The need for a special unit to be there to get that kind of wrong people, it is overwhelming.
Apart from handling numerous violent situations, Omujisha believes his unit is a success.
We have successfully foiled kidnaps, we have successfully rescued some kids.
The Directorate of Fire Prevention and Rescue Services, a vital directorate of Uganda Police Force and one of the force's oldest outfit. Its name clearly tells it all.
Rescuing lives from all manner of emergencies and threats and hazards, fighting fires in order to save people's properties and lives.
Until 1990, this unit would have been helpless against devastating fires.
Government got concerned in 1990 and made the bulk purchase of 12 new firefighting trucks. These were 12.
Before the boost, the fire station in Kampala was equipped with 4 trucks, with other stations only in Mbale and Tororo. As municipalities developed, older trucks purchased in 1982 were repaired and deployed to start new stations in Masaka, Barara, Gulu, and others. Today, as the force celebrates its centenary, the Directorate's capacity is much more improved to the effect that its presence has been spread countrywide.
We are celebrating it when we have spread out to many towns and areas of our country, when we are rendering services to areas where they used not to exist.
For a long time, this has been a common sight on the roads in Kampala and its suburbs. And the situation was worsened with the introduction of border borders. Yet, the road infrastructure remained the same.
These roads were created by colonialists, and they were made for 150,000 vehicles.
No doubt, with approximately 1 million vehicles on these roads, coupled with the road users' indiscipline, the traffic menace was inevitable. But the police has not thrown in a towel. The Directorate now has 500 traffic officers on Uganda's roads and continuously devises methods and strategies to get on top of the situation.
We have some equipment. If you drink and drive, we shall get you anywhere in Uganda. We have speed guns, although they are still not the right speed guns we should be proud of. Card readers. Now it is very difficult for people to forge a permit and they go away with it. We have many motorcycles. Think traffic has motorcycles and we maintain them.
Currently housed at former police training school in Chibuli, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation is one of the oldest police units in the force. Just like other outfits, it has undergone transformation. The Director Grace Akulo sees high-tech and cyber-based crimes as very critical, and hence the emphasis on training.
We've done trainings in bank fraud, like visa fraud. We have cooperated, we have development partners who have cooperated with us, and they are really offering to train. But as a force, we have also done a number of trainings in banker fraud, advanced cyber, even other development partners like BKA, that is the police force of the Federal Republic of Germany. They have also offered us a number of trainings in cyber.
Located at Plot 21 Mabua Road, Kololo, the Directorate of Interpol and International Relations is charged with ensuring international and regional cooperation in the fight against transnational crime. Uganda joined Interpol in 1963 and is one of 192 members of the organization. Hassan Kasinje is the director of Interpol.
We know that crime evolves from one country to another. And because each country has its own legal system, and because each country has its own procedures of handling crime, it was necessary for Interpol to be created in order to help each other.
Originally a unit within the CID, Interpol Uganda was later elevated to a full directorate in 2008.
And from then we had 3 departments handling different transnational offenses: environment, human trafficking, motor vehicle robbery, drugs and narcotic and psychotropic substances, issues to do with cyber, technological crimes, and financial crimes, terrorism, fusion issues. And as I talk, we have 73 staff, because all border areas have to be linked with Interpol, including Entebbe International Airport.
The Canine Unit, another police outfit that is not new in the force.
It started in 1959, but not here, in Naguru Police College, with only 4 dogs. In 1964, when there was a need for expansion, there wasn't enough space in Naguru. It was brought to Nsambia.
It gradually grew to about 40 dogs in the 70s. Their major role was crowd control. Just like many institutions, the unit also suffered effects of political unrest. It was subsequently revived in the late 1980s and progressively grew from 10 up-country units until 2009, when a decision was taken to have it widely expanded.
In 2009, that's when we developed our 5-year strategic plan to have police dogs everywhere in the country. We now have 31 up-country units around the country, and we hope that with our breeding program, which you see, very world-class dogs shall be able to open to about 100 up-country units by the first month of 2016.
From 4 crowd-control dogs in 1959, the unit now boasts over 120 working dogs in 5 breeds, including sniffer dogs to narcotics and explosive sniffer dogs. Construction of a 1 billion shillings worth veterinary hospital, together with a modern dog breeding center, is underway at Nagalama, in the outskirts of Kampala.
It takes a minimum of $8,000 to procure a working dog. By having our own breeding program here, we can quickly multiply these dogs and train our people.
A large part of Uganda's surface comprises water bodies, and criminal activities is rife. The reason for a robust police marine unit. It is headquartered at Chigo, along the shores of Lake Victoria. Formed during the colonial times, the unit suffered decline until its revival in 1995. It handles maritime crimes and insecurity on waters within Uganda's borders.
To ensure law and order on water, liaise with the other stakeholders nationally and internationally. We carry on patrols on water. We do traffic regulations, immigration on water, enforcement of fisheries, and the other related laws.
The unit is also equipped to carry out search and rescue missions and related disasters on Uganda's water bodies. Since its revival, the unit has steadily grown from 4 boats and 67 personnel to 200 with additional equipment and marine stations.
It started with about 4 boats with the 4 establishments here at the Marine Base Chigo, in Kalangala, in Lolwe, and in Butiaba. The capacity has expanded. In around 1998, we received these big boats, the Volvers, and we have been acquiring more boats, speed boats, the Interceptor, the Pursuit boats, and as I talk now, our establishment has gone to 18 detaches.
Headquartered at Entebbe Air Base, Police Air Wing Unit is currently being revamped after many years of neglect and vandalism.
After the 79 war, most of the aircrafts which were there, the helicopters, were either looted during the war, vandalized. Some were used for escape. Some soldiers or officers used them for escaping. For example, one helicopter, Bell 212, was flown to Zaire.
Its existing equipment is being overhauled, and the process of procuring new aircrafts is in the advanced stages.
Police actually has signed a contract with the Augusta to supply 2 new twin-engine helicopters.
The Directorate of Logistics and Engineering, a vital outfit that supports all police operations. Originally a department under the Directorate of Administration, the current management deemed it necessary to elevate it to the directorate status.
Because the resources had increased, and really we needed a directorate which can easily, effectively manage those support services.
Following this development, the directorate was structured accordingly.
It was decided that it should now have 4 divisions. And these are the divisions. 1, Fleet Management Division, it is at the Old Portable Road next to Ministry of Works. Then we have Construction, Estates and Other Management. It is in Chireka. Then we have Logistics in Samja. Then the Division of Equipment, Classified Equipment and Stores. This one is in Naguru.
One of the key issues the Directorate has addressed is the supply of police uniforms. With support from Government of China, an in-house garment factory has been set up to sort out the logistics bottlenecks.
We have been buying uniform from outsourced suppliers. And of course, we have had problems. 1, suppliers, they want supernormal profits. Secondly, it was difficult to ensure standardized stitching of our uniform. It was difficult also to ensure effective control of quality. It was also difficult for us to secure our uniforms. And also, sometimes could not get our uniforms in the time we need it.
The factory has capacity to produce 300 uniforms per day with a workforce of 100 people drawn from the police force. Today, the force has a sizable fleet of vehicles virtually covering its operations across the country. For a long time, housing and accommodation has been a persistent problem for the force. The available housing has not matched the growth in numbers and expansion. However, government complemented by the development partners is making efforts to address the problem. In many parts of the north and northeast, modern police stations complete with accommodation have been constructed at almost every sub-county under programs such as the Justice, Law and Order sector and PRDP.
We are very free now. You just call your wife from the village, she comes, she stays very comfortable. Others, they don't even want to go back to the village.
The establishment of new police stations and police posts in remote areas has increased police presence, enabling communities to easily access their services. The move has also helped in restoring peace and security in areas that were previously very insecure. Police welfare, another critical area that is being addressed. This truck at the police duty-free shop at Ginger Road is being loaded with building materials destined for Arua. The materials will be distributed to police officers who have expressed interest in building their own houses. These duty-free shops have been established to provide affordable building materials tax-free, strictly for members of the police force.
You have your piece of land. We sell you cement. It has tax-free. So it's a reduced price. We have iron sheets at a reduced price. It's just encouraging the police officer to have something.
Today, many police officers have acquired permanent homes through this scheme. Besides subsidized building materials, the Directorate of Welfare is charged with empowering police officers and their families to supplement their pay with income-generating activities. The main driver for this endeavor is the Police Savings and Credit Cooperative Organization.
That means we buy shares, then we save, then we lend. After lending, then we share benefits.
Formed in 2007, the SACCO has assets worth 6.5 billion shillings and a share capital of 2 billion shillings.
Now we can give at least a substantive amount of money that can develop a person.
The SACCO derives its strength and solidity from its 22,000 members who comprise police officers, spouses, and biological children.
For us, we don't want a land title. What we want from you is simple. There is a pay slip.
Based in Bukoto, the Police Professional Standards is a unit that polices the police. It was the culmination of the recommendations of the 1999 Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Corruption in the Police Force. Detective Inspector of Police James Mushabe is the head of the unit.
The management of Uganda Police Force thought it very wise to have our internal mechanism of evaluating our performance and keeping Uganda Police Force on the right track. So in the year 2007, a unit called Uganda Professional Standards Unit was created.
Complaints brought against police officers are handled by fellow officers without fear or favor.
When you are a police officer, you know the code of conduct, we know police standing orders, we know the laws we enforce in Uganda Police Force. So it is very easy for that officer actually to evaluate the performance of their colleagues or to investigate complaints raised by members of public.
Grievances brought to the unit have resulted in appropriate action against the officers in question.
People have been recommended for criminal action, and those officers have appeared in court. They have lost their jobs. Others are in interdiction through court. Others are recommended for disciplinary action in our courts.
As the saying goes, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Sports in the police is as old as the force itself. Over the years, members of the force have excelled in many games, winning many trophies and medals. Jonah Kibwa, the first Ugandan Olympic medalist, was a police officer. The largest number of players in the Ugandan national netball team, the She-Cobs, that have recently qualified for the World Cup competition are drawn from the police force. Apart from getting into sports for competition, the force also continuously derives many benefits from it.
It allows people to associate. It's a community policing strategy. It does improve fitness of officers.
Formed in 1942, initially as a small group of buglers, the Uganda Police Band gradually evolved into a fully-fledged brass band, purposely to play the national anthems and entertain people during national functions. It is probably one unit of the police force that was not adversely affected by the numerous regime changes. With the ongoing reforms in the police, the plan is to make it more nationally based.
Because we are proposing to have regional branches by where we can relieve people from the main station to travel here and there.
But over and all above this reorganization, the end goal is to transform the police from a forceful colonial force to a pro-people one. This paradigm shift is community policing.
Around 1992, when we had Inspector General Odomer, John Kosa Odomer, community policing was made one of the police day-to-day duties. And we thought through neighborhood watch that if you became a guard of your neighbor and your neighbor became your guard, you would be able to combat crime.
The system has its roots in the resistance councils, which was an effective community administration arrangement way back in the late 1980s.
I saw this community policing as really a weapon, turning the people into a weapon to fight crime.
Today, community policing has been adopted and embraced by Ugandan police force as an effective form of policing henceforth.
It's not a magic wand you wave. It's a process. But what at least I'm happy about is that we have a model. It's become the policing.
The youths are a susceptible age bracket. They are constantly tempted into crime and unlawful action due to lack of gainful employment. This group of university students has just completed a month-long crime preventers course at Kabale Police Training School. The course is part of the community policing program. In this case, the focus is on students from tertiary institutions.
Our relationship with universities was confrontation, was antagonistic. So I think that we cannot continue this way, especially Makerere. So we started with Makerere, turning antagonism into cooperation through helping solve some of the problems that normally would end in riots.
The youth are equipped with crime prevention knowledge as well as livelihood skills.
This program has instilled a sense of conviction and mission in us. The program has not only given us the power of knowledge, but has built a sense of inclusiveness in us.
In 2009, the Muyenga community took the initiative to build this police station. Although they invited the police to man it, the local area chairman remains the head of the station and the community owns it. This came to be known as Muyenga Model, a community initiative that has become a community success model.
At that time, the crime rate was over 125 cases per month. But with the introduction of community policing and establishing that community police station, the crime rate reduced to less than 10 per month.
Similar community initiatives have been undertaken in various stations, such as this community hall in Katwe, Kabalagala Police Station, and many others.
To emphasize the point that modern policing must involve the community.
His Excellency is right now handing it over.
To celebrate the transformation of the police, Uganda marked 100 years since it was established in a colorful ceremony at Colonial ceremonial grounds. Addressing the gathering, the Minister of Internal Affairs commended His Excellency the President for using the peace dividend to modernize and professionalize the force.
But because we are at war, conflicts, insurgencies, almost civil wars, they want resources enough, they want even time enough to undertake concurrently building of the UPDF and the police. But since we are done, you are done with the building of the UPDF, you embarked on painstakingly building a police force that we have now, building it from scratch to now about 43,000, reducing the ratio of the police to the policed from almost zero to now 1,500.
His Excellency the President is fully committed to ensuring it truly grows into a force to ably maintain law and order in the country.
After the screening of 1986, we remain with only 3,000 police personnel. By 2006, there were 14,000. You are now 45,000. And we shall continue pushing you until we get to the required ratio one police officer for 500 people of the population.
The Uganda Police is indeed on the path of being transformed from a reactive colonial police force to a community-owned force that has recognized the concerns and needs of contemporary society.